Hello everyone and welcome back to Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. So today we're going to be reviewing the Old Carter Batch 5 Rye and Batch 6 Rye. Now this is actually the first time I've tried either one of these, so I'm really excited to get into them. The Batch 5 Rye is 115.5 proof and the Batch 6 is 116.3 proof. I do want to send a big thank you to Mark and Sherri Carter who supplied me with these samples to review on the channel. So without further ado, let's go. Old Carter Whiskey Company is the passion project by husband and wife team Mark and Sherri Carter. Mark and Sherri handle all aspects of the business themselves, from creating the new blends, selecting the new single barrels, and designing and handwriting each and every label per bottling. So far this year, the Carters have released a number of new expressions, including the very first straight Kentucky whiskey. If the releases in 2020 are any indication of where Old Carter Whiskey Company is headed, then we have a lot to look forward to in 2021. Hello everyone and welcome back. So I've let these sit out now for about 15 minutes to let a little bit of air get to it. We're going to go ahead and start with the Batch 5, which is 115.5 proof. So let's go ahead and get into the nose, guys. Yeah, so right away there's some a really nice sweet caramel to it. A little bit of dill pops up in there, just a little bit. So one note that I'm actually picking up is like some of those vanilla wafers that you get to come in the packs. Really nice vanilla like sweetness to it. Nice cinnamon spice. Maybe a slight hint of lemon on this one. Not too different from a typical rye nose. Something I am actually picking up in here, something that's actually a little different, is I'm actually picking up a little bit of ginger on the nose. A little bit of fruitiness to it. All right, guys, let's go into the taste. Cheers. Nice spice to it. So first impression, the spices actually kind of cover the whole palate from the front of the palate all the way through the finish. Consistent spice. I'd say it's got a pretty like medium body to it. It's not super viscous, but it still kind of lingers around the palate. Not like not like oily, but actually just the flavors. It's not oily. It doesn't leave that waxy feel in your mouth. Really nice. Again, that caramel sweetness follows through. Some of that vanilla. There's definitely some clove in there on the middle of the palate, going like back to the finish. Yeah, again, spices, very balanced spices, nice even across the palate. Doesn't really kind of hit you just in one area. I do actually pick up a little bit of toffee, a nice little toffee note in there on the front of the palate. Some of that sweetness. I don't typically get that in a rye. I've never really. I may have picked up toffee once before, but that's not a typical note for me to pick up in a rye. Yeah. So as the flavor started to develop, like I said, that toffee is sitting there on the front of the palate. There's that cinnamon kind of transferred over. It's actually a note that was on the nose, kind of transfers over to the middle of the palate, going into the finish. It actually is kind of buttery. On that second sip, it feels like it's getting a little more oily, a little more waxy. Again, that spice just kind of just lingers around there. You get those toffee notes. That clove, I really like the clove note though. The clove is just sitting there on the middle of the palate, and then goes all the way down like into the finish. It really doesn't like 115 proof. This would be like 105 proof, maybe. Very, very, again, balanced with the spices. I'm not picking up a lot of that dill, maybe just a little bit of mint on the finish. The dill that was on the nose does not, it does not reflect here on the palate. Yeah, so well, that's interesting. So right at the end of that last sip, I actually pick up a very, very slight hint of tobacco. Um, Again, not something that's very typical in most ryes. I have had that in several ryes, but the tobacco note is really nice, kind of playing off of that clove. Definitely some nice layers here in this batch 5. Again, you're getting some of those sweet notes from the toffee, some of that caramel and cinnamon that follows through. Then you're getting that tobacco and those spices that are just going all the way from the front of the palate to the back. Again, it is a little more, maybe a little bit more of a heavy body. At first I thought it was a medium body, but it's definitely, after those first couple sips, it does get a little more oily in the mouth, and those flavors just kind of just hang around in there. Very, very nice. Again, nice. There's a little bit of sweet oakiness maybe towards the back too. Some oakiness, some tobacco, some toffee on the front. Again, just I'm not really getting that dill like you get on the nose, but that clove that sits on the middle of the palate and goes back into the finish. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and take a sip of water, and we're gonna go ahead and get into the batch 6, guys. Overall thoughts on the batch 5 so far. Really, really good. Really, really solid rye. I wish I actually had a bottle of this myself. Like I said, this sample was sent to me by Mark and Sherri Carter. I'm very, very grateful for that. So let's go ahead and get into the batch 6. This one is 116.3 proof. Let's go ahead and get to the nose. Because this one's a little different. Nice lemon, like some of that lemon bread. Probably one of the first notes I get. Maybe some allspice in there. Nice spices, really nice spices on the nose in batch 6. This one was actually, batch 5 seemed a little bit maybe sweeter on the nose. This one seems like it's a little bit more spicy character on the nose. Yeah, definitely some allspice in there. That lemon, like that lemon bread. And there's actually a little bit of an herbal note on the nose in this batch 6. I do pick up an herbal note time to time in some of these ryes, not too often though. And an herbal note, I don't mean it in a bad way. It's actually a really nice note. It kind of plays off that lemon a little bit. Kind of a balance of some herbal and some nice sweetness. All right, let's get into the palate, guys. Cheers. Cool. Yeah, so this one's a little different. Now, this one on the palate is way more spicy, I think, than the batch 5. Batch 5 came off a little bit sweeter. This one of the first things I get is like a nice rye bread. Again, you still get a little bit of that citrus, some orange and some lemon on the sides of the palate there. Some of that citrus kind of sits on the sides. Love that. That rye bread though, that rye bread taste is those rye spices kind of just sitting between the front and the middle of the palate, mingling with that citrus. Really nice. Go for a second sip. Yeah, so definitely that spiciness there. This one I feel that 116 proof. This 115 proof batch 5 drank like 105 proof to me. This one drinks like it's 116, 116.3 proof. Could be again mixture of the proof and some of those spices. Again, really nice balance, I think, between a sweet and a spicy. It does have that sweetness, but that spiciness is right there too. The batch 5 was more sweet than it was spicy. This one is actually it's pretty balanced between a sweet and a spicy. But the spices are definitely a little more. They stand out a little bit more on this one. Again, so rye bread, like that nice rye bread, rye spice on the front of the palate, citrus on the sides. There's a sweetness, like a vanilla, some of those little vanilla fudge squares that you can get. Really nice vanilla sweetness kind of covers the palate. And I do pick up a black tea, like a very slight black tea note on here, going from the middle of the palate to the finish. Very interesting note there. Actually, a little bit of clove there. Clove in that black tea on the finish. Fantastic finish on this one. Again, this is in my opinion has a heavier body than the batch 5 does. This one is very viscous. Those oils are just all over my mouth right now. Very viscous, spicy. Those spices just continue to develop onto the palate, and not in a bad way. Let's get into the last sip, guys. Cheers. Yeah, so front of the palate, that rye bread. Sides of the palate, you get that citrus, like a lemon, and a nice orange. Vanilla fudge sweetness that kind of just follows through from the front of the palate all the way to the back. A little bit of clove and that black tea note that follows through into the finish. Again, viscous and oily. The spices are just they play very well with the sweetness that comes off of this when it's not overpowering, but it definitely makes itself known that there's some nice rye spice in here. Again, nice and oily, great finish, great finish. Clove, the black tea note, actually a little bit of pepper there towards the finish. Fantastic finish on batch 6. I think the batch 6 has a better balance of sweet and spice, whereas the batch 5 is definitely more of a sweeter rye. This one, again, the balance between the spiciness and the sweetness is just perfect. And that finish, getting that clove, a little bit of black pepper in there, that black tea note, absolutely fantastic here at batch 6. Batch 5 is very good as well. For me, I would honestly pick batch 6. I think, again, these are both fantastic whiskeys. I would buy a bottle of either one of these in a heartbeat. I do consider these to be an A. Both of these are an A in my book. Something that you would definitely put up in the cabinet, drink on a special occasion maybe, or when some friends come by. Batch 5, very nice nose, a nice sweet rye. Batch 6 again has that perfect balance between a sweet and a spicy. It's savory, oily. The finish on this thing is absolutely fantastic. I've never had a rye finish kind of like this one. It's very unique. And a lot of ryes, you'll find that some of them tend to finish the same way. This is a very unique finish on this one. Again, the clove, the black pepper, and then you get the that like black tea note. Absolutely fantastic. So for me, I would personally pick the batch 6 over the batch 5. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And I again want to send a big thank you to Mark and Sherri Carter, who supplied me with these samples to review on the channel. Last year I went to Kentucky with Jason from the Mash and Drum and Scott from My Bourbon Journey. And we met up with the Carters for an evening at the Seelbach Hotel and shared some of their whiskeys and joked around. And I could just tell you personally, the pride and passion that goes into their blending and their picking their barrels, and just what they do as a whole really kind of reflects in the products that we actually get to taste. The pride and that passion is a quality that you just can't teach someone, and again, it reflects in what they're putting out here. So this was just part 1 of a part 2 series, so please stay tuned for the second part, where I will be reviewing their American whiskeys and their bourbons. So if you're looking for reviews of bourbons, ryes, or some of those dusties, hit that subscribe button and bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You can also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And until next time, guys, stay dusty.